In Fallout 4, I always kind of felt like the Railroad were just that faction that was kind of there in the corner. People always love to hate Preston and the Minutemen, myself included. The Brotherhood of Steel were that classic faction that people either really enjoyed or really disliked. And the Institute were super integrated into the main story of Fallout 4 and just kind of found themselves in the middle of everything else. So what if you really wanted to take the Railroad to the next level? In that sense, removing them completely right away. What happens if on your next playthrough of Fallout 4, rather than dealing with the Railroad, you simply place down a few bricks of C4 and just go to town on them? Well, in this video, we're going to find out just that. This is going to be the next episode in my kind of altered game state series where we do something that's unique, a twist on Fallout 4's story, and see how the game and the story itself does play out. I've showed you guys what happens if you don't take a perk and if you just ignore Preston outright, and I always really open to hearing ideas for what you want to see me do next time, because oddly enough, it is actually fairly difficult to think of concepts for this series. Taking down the Railroad is actually pretty simple. You can literally just from the start of the game run straight to the North Church, plug in the code Railroad, and just start going to town on everyone. None of the characters are essential, meaning that you can immediately take them down and it'll just kind of be over. There's quite a few obvious consequences of this. You'll never be able to do any of the Railroad quests. Deacon will never be available as a companion because he's dead. And of course, you'll lose all the trading possibilities that you otherwise would have had at this location. But there's going to be a ton of pretty cool loot that you can get right at the start of the game if you manage to take everyone down. But with that out of the way, what about the main story of Fallout 4? What about some of the bigger implications of the Railroad? In particular, when you progress through Fallout 4 and go to get the Courser chip, the Railroad is a core component there because they're the faction that has to analyze that. Is there an alternative way? Can you use another faction to analyze that? Well, I want to find out just this and see if there are any other unique or unseen dialogue options throughout Fallout 4's story if from day one, before doing any of the quests, you just immediately take down the Railroad. For the most part, in the early stages of the game, nobody really seems to care. Nobody was angry with me. It's not like I was locked out of any dialogue options for the main story at least. And as I began to progress through the early parts of Fallout 4's core story, I realized how little of a role the Railroad actually played, or really any major faction for that matter. Here's a little bonus though that I wanted to include in this video. A lot of people are wondering what happens if you never meet Dogmeat. It wasn't really worthy of a standalone video, but I happened to do it in this story. I never went to Red Rocket. I never greeted the dog. But in Fallout 4, after rescuing Nick Valentine, when you're looking for Kellogg, Dogmeat is the person you have to show the cigar to. You actually get some unique dialogue as you do this, but it's fairly anticlimactic.
There's gotta be someone who can help.
Yeah, let me think. There is someone I know. A specialist of a kind. Always goes his own way, but I can get him here.
If he can help, let's do it.
All right, I'll send out the signal. You're not going to hear it. The frequency is high, but he'll pick it up. Okay, I called him. Let's wait outside.
Dogmeat! This is your friend? He's a dog.
That's right. A Commonwealth mutt like him can track a man's scent for miles.
So back on the trail of playing through Fallout 4 without the Railroad, one thing I did notice was a lot of the major characters in the game that do reference or talk about the Railroad continue to do so as if they're a faction you simply haven't really interacted with.
But there are people who might. I work with a group that, well, they're the only ones I know that even have a chance at cracking Institute security. They're called the Railroad.
The Railroad?
They helped Synths escape the Institute. I don't know who they all are. Usually an agent of theirs just shows up with someone who needs new memories. One of them gave me a code phrase, said it would help me find them if there was ever an emergency. Follow the Freedom Trail.
But at no point do they actually reference the fact that you've destroyed them. In fact, they do quite the opposite. They reference them as if they are actually still there. Maybe my hopes here were a little bit too high, but in some of these other playthroughs, characters actually had unique dialogue as a result, so I was hoping for some more of that in this video. Unfortunately, that doesn't really seem to be the case, and you can progress through Fallout 4's story all the way up to getting the Courser chip. Once you actually get the Courser chip, things are a little bit different. It almost seemed like at first the quest was glitching out here since I had destroyed the railroad. It might just be a general Fallout 4 glitch and unrelated, but it was telling me to go in a very odd and different direction than what would be the most practical to go in. And then actually after returning to the railroad HQ and finding it in ruins, what you're going to be able to do now, instead of talking to Tinker Tom and actually having to deal with that whole process, there's just a file on his computer. You gain access to it, you read it, and it'll basically tell you how to decode the Courser chip. From that point forward, you plug it into the little machine, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess it's kind of anticlimactic, but literally from this point forward, it'll just be like the railroad never existed in Fallout 4. You continue with the other major factions, that being the Minutemen or the Brotherhood of Steel, to actually build your teleporter, get into the Institute, and then continue on. For the quest from this point forward, when you typically would have an option of, okay, you could either deal with the Railroad, Brotherhood, or the Minutemen, you simply won't have the railroad show up as an option anymore. So of course, when actually going through this playthrough, you do miss out on unlocking all the valuable things the railroad actually brings to the table, that being like Ballistic Weave, which I know is particularly valuable to a lot of people, the Deliverer, which I know again, a lot of people really enjoy using that thing, the Prototype Railway Rifle, although you still can get the regular variant. But yeah, that's really it. I mean, you could totally complete all of Fallout 4 while still destroying the railroad right away, and honestly, outside of the initial battle with the railroad, it makes the game almost a bit simpler. You don't have to deal with jumping through the railroad's hoops when actually trying to get the Courser chip decoded. You just literally walk up and do it yourself. Although obviously it is a little bit disappointing that no custom or unique dialogue options were unlocked as a result of this. Everyone in the Commonwealth still seemed to think that the railroad did continue to exist. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you found this video informative, and again, I'd love to hear in the comments down below suggestions or recommendations as to what to do next time. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you guys all next time. Later.